Okay, let's talk about foreclosure. So, this is probably one of the top subjects I either get emails about, texts, or calls. People ask me about foreclosures more than any other question that I have because I have bought so many properties at auction. I can tell you the process in my sleep. It's really always the same, but it happens in different time periods for each person has its own time period. So what happens is when you stop, sending your payments in at day 30, the bank will send you a notice and say, "Hey, you forgot to pay us." And if you don't respond in 15 more days, they will send you another notice and they'll start calling you. And if you ignore this, they will just streamline the process. So I tell people all the time, if you would just keep in contact with the bank and explain to them, your situation, they might, tell you you could do a forbearance. There's a lot of different things that you can do to, make yourself current. So, one of the things that they do is on day 60, they send you a notice, a default notice. You have defaulted on your mortgage, and we will proceed with foreclosure if you do not pay us. At day 90, they have filed something at the courts that gives them the trustees' right to foreclose on you. And it is called the notice of default, and you actually get a copy of it sent in the mail, usually registered. That is the only notice that they have to formally give you. They don't have to give you any more notice. Sometimes they do, and if they do, it's a courtesy. But let's say if, at day 90 you get your notice of default and they don't foreclose for 5 years, they don't have to tell you in 5 years that they're going to foreclose. They've already told you at day 90 that they're going to foreclose. So what happens is it goes to a trustee, which is, one of these lawyers that are hanging around. And that's all they do is they do the foreclosures at the courthouse. They file the paperwork, they check all their I's and dot all their T's, and then they notify the public that they're going to foreclose on this property, that it is going to auction. And just so people understand, auction is the day of foreclosure. It's not two separate things. So when it gets auctioned, it just means they're putting it out there for the public to buy on the day that they foreclose on it. So if you're standing in the crowds and you're buying properties, and let's say it comes in too high and nobody buys it, it goes back to the bank. But that does not mean that it didn't foreclose. It just means that no investor bought it and now it is bank owned. And so I will tell you, there is some strategies with even after it's been foreclosed and it's considered an REO. Before they register that deed, you can always ask them if, look, can I make a deal with you? I will pay you all your money up front and just reinstate my loan. And I've actually had clients do that. I've been able to work it out with the bank where they didn't get their payment there on time, or they're standing at the trustee's desk and the trustee is actually out at the auction site auctioning your house off, and you're standing there with a cashier's check to make it current or whatever that they required of you, because sometimes they don't require the whole thing. Sometimes they'll say, give me $10,000 and I'll stop this auction, and then we'll work out a deal. So what happens is when it goes back to the bank, it is considered an REO. But that could take 3 months, 4 months, 5 years. And there is no rhyme or reason to who gets foreclosed on and who does not. I will tell you that there are notes, mortgages that they don't want to foreclose on. And you also need to understand what a property is to the bank. So as long as you're paying that note, you're an asset. If you stop paying your mortgage, you're considered a non-performing asset, but you're still an asset. The day that they foreclose on you and now they own your property, you are considered a liability. And the banks do not want to have liabilities on their books. That is definitely in the red. Even though you weren't paying it, you still owned it. It was considered a liability or an asset, just a non performing asset. But once they foreclose, it is no longer an asset to the bank and they need to get rid of it. So usually they'll take less for it at the auctions than what you owe on it because they don't want the liability on their books. So there are a couple of ways to stop a foreclosure. One of them is to come up with the payments. And sometimes, like I said, they'll take payments instead of the whole bulk sum. Um, the next one is claiming bankruptcy. And I've had people say, well, I've claimed Chapter 13. I can't claim bankruptcy again. Yes, you can. You can go back and claim 7. And that actually will stop the foreclosure again. It's only temporary. This only gives you a little bit of time to work out your plan. Like I've said in my last videos, a lot of people are struggling and they're doing temporary, short term things for a long term problem. And so you need to be, ready for that long term plan. Um, a lot of properties I have bought at auction, they had a lot of equity. And I'm like, wow, why didn't these people sell these properties? Like they could have sold it and got cash for it. Divorce situations, husband and wife are fighting. There's $100,000 in this house that they could be splitting up, but they're too busy fighting. And so they let it go to auction and they lost everything. Like, why would you do that? So, a lot of times you have to step back and really look at the problem. Is it the loan the reason why you couldn't pay your payments? Did you lose a job? What is your long term solution? This is only temporary, and that's how you need to treat it. And don't do something long term that's going to affect, your what you're doing now. So, um, be aware that there's a lot of reasons people go to auction. They go to auction with equity. Some of them are upside down. Some of them are doing a short sale, and the agent doesn't know how to do a short sale the correct way, so it's dragging on too long. So there's a lot of reasons why you would go to auction, but just know there are ways to stop it. I do consult people all the time. I tell them what options they have and how that will affect them in the future because that's something that you need to know. If you need a bankruptcy attorney, I've got a slew of them that I can refer you over to in the different counties. There's a lot of options that you have, and I just wish that people would reach out more and ask for help, if not publicly, privately, get help because there are ways to stop this. So hopefully you guys are learning a little bit about, real estate because I think it's really important, especially in these day and times, that we all band together and help each other as much as we can. So that's why I'm doing these videos. All right, on to the next.